for entrepreneurs who are managing their businesses on their own, who are working on the international field and who are thinking. Ruslana Remarska, who is the owner of their own businesses, she is one of the participants of our project and the mentor of our project as well, and she plays the piano, by the way. She had launched her Japanese site in 6 days. I can say a lot of good things about her. And we also have Yevheniya Lukash with us. He is the owner of Evgakids company. She is really taking care of the clothes of our children, and not only our children, she participates in our project, and she has been also visiting the Paris fair, and we would like to also identify where Paris is situated in Canada, because I really enjoyed her photos after that trip. All of the questions, once again, please send to the chat box that's on the lower panel of your Zoom. We will then voice out the most interesting questions for the conversation, and we will have the time. We will provide you with, for example, written answers. Maybe we will give you an opportunity also to speak up, to voice out all of your questions if we'll have the time for that. And please do not forget to also outline your name when you're going to be writing down the question. It's very important so we can communicate directly with you. And please mention what company you represent, and please also address this question to the specific professionals that we have today. So we're slightly out of schedule, so I think we can start the conversation. Michael, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and a pleasure to meet you all and to be in Kiev and also in Canada at the same time. As it happens, I'm actually talking to you from Nairobi in Kenya. So I'm going to talk today about corporate social responsibility and how it helps small and medium-sized enterprises, such as those represented here. In particular, how it can help you to increase your exports from Ukraine to Canada. Now, in front of me, I have a presentation. I'm not so sure, can you see the presentation in the Ukrainian language as well? Okay, well, let me go ahead. Can people see my slides?
Like, no, we can't see. No, we can't see your slides. You're not sharing your screen.
Okay, no, my slides are in English as it happens.
That's okay, Michael. That's okay, Michael.
Okay.
You said the English.
Okay. Can you see that now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Sorry about that for that slight hiccup. Actually, the picture in the background that you see is where I usually live, which is in the middle of Europe. These are the Alps. And in fact, tomorrow, the Tour de France, if anybody watches the cycle competition, passes just in the valley tomorrow, I think, from me. So in front of me, just there. But what I'm going to talk about today is mainly about social responsibility and stakeholders. I don't know if any of you were at the meeting of a month or so ago where there was an emphasis on social responsibility and stakeholders, and also how to go about choosing stakeholders. So let's go right into that. To me, social responsibility is all about stakeholders. The traditional view of a bit of economics here is on the left of the screen. The traditional view is shareholders and maximizing profit almost to the exclusion of everything else. But social responsibility also looks at stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? So the key stakeholders in your company, and we're going to talk much more about that today. So we're going to move a little bit towards from the economic theory of the firm in terms of only profit maximization into the stakeholder theory of the firm, which is not against profit maximization. I should insist on that. The thing is to maximize your profits by doing good as well as doing well. This is my definition of corporate social responsibility. I leave this slide in, which will be translated. We'll give you all the details, but I'm not going to go through that in any detail. And you don't worry, this is the only slide I have with lots of words on it, and I'm going to move forward. So that my definition of corporate social responsibility is treating key stakeholders responsibly. Treating key stakeholders responsibly. And in fact, the previous slide actually explained a little bit more what do I mean by treating, what do I mean by key, what do I mean by a stakeholder, and what do I mean by responsibly. A lot of these discussions are available in my textbook, which is available, and we can send it to those people who will be interested in that. But unfortunately, I'm sorry to say that it's all in English. So, choose your key stakeholders. Well, how do we do that? How do we choose our stakeholders? In fact, it's very, very simple. You have to work out who's the most important to you when you're doing your business. So, in your business, it's quite clear that your employees are important. Let me move on to the next slide, and I can give you an example of a generic company, a small and medium-sized company. SME means that's in the middle of the screen, a small company. And here's an example of the sorts of stakeholders that you would have. So when you're working on what you do, in fact, most of this comes to you as second nature, that you know all this. Certainly for your company, your employees here are very, very important. Of course, it's no good having employees in a company without having customers. You're also going to have to know something about the management of your company. So are the managers pretty tuned to the stakeholder model that you're working on? There are other key stakeholders. These are probably the most important ones that I mentioned were the employees, possibly the shareholders, the customers. For you, what's also very important as a stakeholder is the Canadian government and the trade laws. So you've got to start looking at those a little bit. Now, in terms of your customers, here, your customers, these are going to be mainly Canadians, but in fact, the same idea applies to almost any country that you're going to export to. But of course, every country is different, and in Canada, customers are particularly interested in who they're buying from, as well as what they're buying. So they also want to know that the products or the services that they're buying are socially responsible in some way. So what do we mean by that? Well, the main thing, of course, is are they obeying the laws of the land? For example, there's no point in selling products abroad if the product has got harmful elements in it. These days, plastics, of course, are of a great concern to consumers, especially as plastics seem to find their way into the sea. And this is dangerous for the whole fishing industry, which is important, especially for Canada. Ukraine is mainly landlocked, except, no, of course, it's got the part of the sea to the southeast. But one projection is that in the world, that if the world continues to consume indestructible plastics, the weight of plastics in the sea by the year 2050 will be the same weight as the weight of fish in the sea. So this is a huge problem. So I'm just saying now that if you're exporting to Canada, you've got to know what sorts of things that the customers want. And one issue, of course, is the environment that I've just mentioned. When you're producing goods, are you careful about the natural environment? Also, when you're producing products, is the waste from your products harming people? So as a stakeholder, the environment is very, very important. Another issue which is of concern in Canada is the issue of gender equality. How are you treating both men and women in your company? Anyway, so this is an example of the sorts of stakeholders that you might want to look at. Some of them might not be as important to you as others. And you might have to actually even think that there are other stakeholders which I've not covered. For example, trade unions might be more important, or maybe your marketing partners are very important. Clearly, QTIS is very important because you're working with them in order to improve your export performance. Let me move on to the next thing, onto two stakeholders, gender. So what does it mean if gender is clearly as a stakeholder, because we're talking about people, we're talking about men and women. But Canadians are particularly interested that gender is treated responsibly. Well, what do we mean by that? Most of it, the ideas of responsible treatment are somewhat obvious, but point 2 in my list here is to ensure the equality of treatment of men and women as far as possible. In particular, my point 3 here is that women and men are receiving the same amount of money, the same wages for equal work. So if a man and a woman are doing a very similar work, then they should be paid the same. Of course, you have to count for experience and length of work and so on. But generally, people look for equality in terms of equal pay for equal work. Now, you might want, in fact, as part of your company policy, is to create your company. It could just be a few friends, maybe if this is a very small company of a couple of people, then maybe just the owner and the manager might just want to have a discussion about gender issues. And what you might want to do as well is to communicate what you're doing. So in some way, report. You can do that through social media. You might have a Facebook page that you might want to use, or many other aspects. You might even want a written report in some way. These are the sorts of things that Canadian consumers, believe it or not, will be looking out for. Not just the product itself, however beautifully made it is, if they think that that product has been made by exploiting either men or women or even children in some countries, now I know it's probably not the case in Ukraine, then they'll be more reluctant to buy your products, even if they were cheaper than a competitor's product. So in fact, by observing just some simple rules about treating gender issues and ensuring equality of treatment of men and women, this will give an extra impetus to people, especially in Canada, but other places in the world, to buy your product. And the other issue that these days people are very, very keen on, of course, there are lots of other issues I mentioned for the other stakeholders, like your suppliers and the type of product that you're using, the type of management, the type of after-sales service, and all these sorts of things as well, which I won't have much time to go into today, but we can actually come back and answer your questions after I've finished. I'm going to speak now for another 5 or 10 minutes, and then we're going to open to question with your moderator. So similarly with with the environment as a stakeholder. Of course, there's not one person in this case who you're thinking of, but the environment has its representatives everywhere. Greenpeace, is, for example, you might have heard of, is an NGO which is very concerned about these issues. But again, Canadian consumers I'd be very interested to know that your products, when they're being created, are not polluting the environment. A few years ago, nobody used to worry about these things, but these days, as we realize how important that natural environment is in terms of trees and in terms of water and so on, you might already see in the international news the huge concern right now about the melting of the polar ice cap, which could lead to the rising of the seas of 10 meters. And that could actually inundate totally some countries such as Bangladesh and half the United States and some of the coast, but probably doesn't affect you so much in terms of rising seas, but certainly pollution of the atmosphere, because that leads to increased temperatures and increased pollution in your cities. And I've been to Kiev, a beautiful city, and you want to keep it as beautiful as you can. And certainly pollution from burning polluting products can happen in all sorts of ways. It's very, very dangerous for the environment. It can create very dirty conditions. You also want to make sure that the conditions of work for workers are environmentally pristine as much as they can. For example, you want to make sure that if you're inside, that the paint on the surfaces of the walls doesn't contain lead. I mean, it's just an example. There are lots of issues. So I think, again, as I'm suggesting, as I did for the gender issue, and you might want to do this for other stakeholders as well. Obviously, this is a very small part of your work. I'm not saying this should dominate your work, because your main job, of course, is to produce an excellent product and to make sure people know about it. But these small things can actually help your products enormously. So I'm suggesting a fourth point, as I did for gender, is maybe create a small working group or one or two individuals who might be actually looking at the environmental issues. Maybe they could read about it from other companies around the world, and then just see how your company is adopting that. You could even use what you're doing on the environment as part of your advertising campaign. Nothing like an advertising campaign which shows in the background mountains and trees and beautiful grass and beautiful buildings. And that can help as well. And of course, fifth, report on it as much as possible. I'm not suggesting a long report. Again, use social media or as part of your advertising or on your website, or even a label on your products to say that these products respect international environmental concerns. We move on. So I just want to give you an example of some corporate social responsibility applications, and this might surprise you. I know that people in Ukraine are very, very keen on football, as I am myself. And it so happens that I'm an advisor to the European Football Association. And one of the important aspects of that, you probably have not seen it, and I would like it to be seen more, is this word respect. Now, when you see a European football match with, Real Madrid and Barcelona, or Bayern Munich, or I'm not sure what the Kiev side is. I think you've got to tell me about that, actually. Is that you will see the respect sign, and that is the social responsibility of the European Football Association. And it contains a lot of the things that we've been talking about. It tries to identify who its stakeholders are and what to do about them. You see here, for example, barriers around to make sure that the public doesn't run onto the field. Well, that also helps them as well, so that crashes and which could lead to death don't occur. But the other thing is that players respect each other. They respect each other's origins. If they have different colors, for example, that one would respect people. And this whole idea came originally from Michel Platinet. Anyway, this is what one company is doing. I won't go into any more detail on that. I just want quickly to this little company here in Kenya, which exports to the world. It actually exports wire, and you can see the picture here. And this is myself actually with the managing director. And this man actually is one of the most important people who runs football in this country, in Kenya. And he's actually Canadian and former ice hockey player. His name is Bob Munro, wonderful guy and one of my best friends here. But I'm not here to talk about that, I'm here to talk about this little company. And this has 100 employees. And the managing director invited me to assess the social responsibility, how they're doing. And he allowed me to walk around the factory. And I've only got a few minutes left, so I won't go into great detail. But what I loved about this man, he allowed me to walk around the factory and ask any questions I liked to the employees. And he wasn't worried at all, because he knew that in business for about 50 years that he's actually never lost an employee. I mean, he's never fired an employee. There's a total ban on corruption and so on. I'm not going to go through this. You can see this later if you wish. But these are some of the main things that he's done. And of course, keeping his stakeholders happy, satisfied customers, absolutely strong safety record and so on. Let me move on. So finally, I don't want to talk too long, because I'm very interested to know what your thoughts are and your questions are on social responsibility. I've just given you some ideas. Another thing that people ask me a lot is whether CSR is actually social responsibility. Can it be applied to NGOs, to the non-profit industry? And it's quite interesting that NGOs have often been criticized of criticizing private companies themselves, holding up very high standards for private companies, but not to themselves. Well, we think they should. The same with the government. Can social responsibility apply to public administration, to the government? Well, yes, of course it can. Governments and public institutions, in fact, have not been much examined by their social responsibility. But they also have to obey the ideas of social responsibility in terms of their stakeholders as well. And I think, I'm sure you can imagine many instances where perhaps this is not the case. But certainly the public administration, the government, has to behave as socially responsible as possible. And they should also identify who their key stakeholders are. And certainly they're you. I move on. So this is what corporate social responsibility is. My very short definition, which is where I started today, is that, let me say it again, social responsibility is treating key stakeholders responsibly. Treating key stakeholders responsibly. And I'm not sure how that translates into Ukrainian, but I know that the thousands of students that I've been involved in over the last 20, 25 years, I always say to them, you might not remember very much about the course because we don't never remember everything, but one thing is you better remember this definition, okay? And they certainly agree to that. So 3 key steps in terms of social responsibility. Yes, the CEO has to be involved. Yes, the staff have to be involved, but also think out of the box. See how adopting social responsibility in your company can both improve your products and improve the service to your customers, especially, we're talking about Canada today and what the Canadians want. So you need to talk to the Canadians, and I know many people from QTIS and from Canada come to Ukraine, and in the end, the best way we can read as many books as we like, I know, the best is to discuss to people that you like. Well, you can read these books. These are 3 books that I've written on corporate social responsibility, but let me just finish today on the 3 things that, and we were discussing this last night with the stakeholders from Canada, and the 3 things that we're hoping that we can provide you with today, which is, First, who are the key stakeholders? Remember, I said the most apt thing to do is the importance of the stakeholder. How important are the stakeholders for you running your business? Sometimes it could be not one of the stakeholders that I mentioned today, and we can have another discussion of that, but certainly your customers and your employees and the natural environment and gender is absolutely essential for exporting to Canada. And two, the main benefits of social responsibility for you. Why should we do it? Why should I bother? I think, and I hope that I've convinced you in this very short talk and in our future conversations, that this will help you increase your sales and increase your profits. And also you'll have a much happier workforce, and a happier workforce, as you know, work harder and produce much better quality goods. So these are just some of the advantages in it. And thirdly, well, how will people know we're doing all this? Communicate. Tell them about it. Use it as part of your advertising. Have a slogan. We're the most socially responsible textile company, not only in Ukraine, but probably the whole of Europe. Of course, tell the truth. When you communicate, make sure it's honest, but you can use diagrams and pictures, and I'm sure many of you know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's important to use the ideas of social responsibility in your communications to tell people what you're doing. So I thank you very much for listening to me. And I thought I would end up by saying that I put my money where my mouth is. You see, all my stakeholders, this is at a European Football Association match. Well, I didn't talk to them all, but anyway, thank you very much for listening to me, and I look forward to receiving your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you. Дякуємо за чудову презентацію.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. Thank you for the nice presentation. Would like to ask, do we have any questions? Do we have at least one question, or then we can go to the next presentation? So I will just give you an outline of Ukrainian perspective to the social corporate responsibility, and we'll pay more attention to the practical advice. So, okay, so everyone wants to have your presentation in English. People are really eager to read that. And there is a question from Nadia. I believe that at the very beginning of the webinar, we have already said that we will send all the presentation to our participants, and we will also have the recording available for all of our events. So you'll also be able to re-listen it once again if you feel like it. Great. So also, there was an example of the social corporate responsibility for the company that is exporting services. Michael, can you provide an example of corporate social responsibility for the services trading companies?
By services, of course, it covers a lot of things. It includes banking, includes finance, it includes tourism. I don't want to give you a lecture on it because you've asked me a very good question on services. So in most economies these days, services are, in fact, the main part of especially an advanced country, and Ukraine is, I know, fairly advanced, is that services are very important. Tourism is very important. Let me give you an example, because not much time to go into all the different aspects of it. Certainly, in terms of financial services, anti-corruption is key. You have to be known, if you're providing financial services, that you're not putting everything in your own pocket. So that is quite important. But there's one issue here that I've been discussing on services, which is tourism. And because of the lockdown, the tourism has been hurt. The airline industry, the hotel industry, the restaurants, and so on. So I've actually been promoting something which I call personal social responsibility, rather than the company's social responsibility. Is that, yes, the companies providing tourist services should be social responsible. But I think as well, if a hotel or a restaurant is saying, you must wear masks in closed spaces, you must keep a social distance, and our waiters do, and our service staff does, and we regularly infect our establishment. That's our personal responsibility for receiving tourists. But I think we can do the same. We can say to tourists, listen, we will love you to come to our country, but you must respect us, and you must also keep your social distance and wear face masks, especially now during this COVID. So this is an example, and this is something I've been pushing in many countries around the world, from India to Colombia to Mauritius, and even to those countries in Africa. So just a simple example. Again, the same thing happens, as I mentioned before. Let's start off by who are the key stakeholders? Well, certainly in the tourist industry, if you don't get any clients, if you don't get any tourists, then you're finished. So your key stakeholders, obviously the tourists, and today a key issue is personal social responsibility.
Я сподіваюся, Майкл чудово відповів на ваше запитання.
So I hope Michael has covered your question. Then thank you very much for that. And I think that we can stick to the next presentation because we're slightly out of schedule. But I would like to ask Tatiana if I can share my screen. Yes, but we need to ask Michael to stop sharing the screen to do that.
I've done. Sorry.
So yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now I will try to share my screen with you. And so here you can see my presentation now. So I've tried to be very, very brief. You can see my presentation, you can see my screen. Tatiana, can you just please confirm? Yes, we can see that perfectly. Good, great. I've tried to be very, very brief with my presentation. I have taken a couple of slides away, so I'm going to be I'll try to be clear and precise. So why do I have the courage to speak up in front of you? Because like you will say, of course, she is the head of the chamber. What can she know? Even though we have 27 years of experience in that. And we had an extensive amount of contacts among the different representatives of different businesses of different sizes and different industries. But in the same time, I also have my practical experience in place. As I've already mentioned, I'm starting from 1992, when I was called Hanum, and when I had a collective of people who were working in the Middle East, Iran, Iraq. We have working with interpreters, with engineers, with a lot of people. Then I worked with the Northern Power, which is the Canadian developer of power projects. They are building up the electric power stations. And we've also had a very big collective here, and we've introduced what was called, we'll try to introduce what was called the corporate social responsibility. And, you know, we try to introduce the so-called international and Western approach to working with people. I would like to once again mention that with the help of the QTIS project, we're able to do that. We're able to share our opinions, share our thoughts, and we're able to give this thoughts to the small and medium enterprises on the small recommendations, what they can start with, and maybe help them if they need. So we are always open to any kind of your communication. You know that you can always call us, you know that we answer the calls, and would be really happy to meet you if there is any kind of demand from the society side, from the community, or from the company. There's a lot of materials that our project has already provided, and if we will have the need, then we will also add up the chapter on the corporate social responsibility in exports, and we will add some of our experience to that too. But what I would like to emphasize on in my presentation, I would only like to highlight one single small highlight, because the corporate social responsibility can be divided into four main pillars, which is the society, which is the environment, markets, and the labor. I will only speak of labor, I will only speak of work, because basically in our country we have a certain disbalance, because a lot of big state companies, they have a fantastic companies of managing staff. They have the high level of protection, social protection for their employees, especially the state-owned companies. In the same time, the small and medium businesses, they don't even know what to start with. It's not that they do not want to have the comfortable conditions for the people to work with, but just because they do not have a lot of time and they have no clear understanding of how they can start this work. I would like to identify what are the main documents in Ukraine that regulate labor relationships. I know that a lot of people are smiling at this moment. They say like, what is she talking about? But I would like to be very clear and precise about that. I'm very good at the code of the laws on labor in Ukraine, and with all of the amendments that have been made even up till this year. And I would like to tell you that it has a lot of really important norms. For example, equality between men and women. There also the full prohibition of the children's labor. Other important issues, like for example, protecting women in motherhood, that you cannot fire, for example, a pregnant woman because of their pregnancy. And because when, for example, women coming back after the child leave, they have the right for their job. They cannot be fired if the woman is on the child leave. Another document that also exists in some other big enterprises, this is the collective agreement. It is also has been mentioned in our labor regulations. It regulates the relationship between the collective and between the employer. I have heard many times that it's already a rudiment of the past, possibly, but when I worked in Canadian companies, we always had something like that, which is very good in my opinion, because the so-called the collective agreement, it's not only providing all of the agreements between the working collectives and the employees, depending whether you will have the trade unions, and I will also have another amendment on that. But the collective agreement also builds up the dialogue between the employees and the employer. So basically, you're providing this balance to both of the sides. And it's also a labor agreement, a labor agreement. There is also, this is a document that you're all aware. I think it's much clearer and much more important for the SMEs. Feedback is also important. If something goes wrong in the enterprise, then the collective can speak up and the employer can change something in their everyday practices. They can introduce something new. So this is about the team building. It's about building up your team, which is very important. The trade unions are a very interesting issue. We know that historically trade unions can be both good and bad. And I know some really good employers who are one of the best employers in Canada, for example, who are not hiring people who are the members of the trade unions. But this kind of American practices that has been established through the times of the Big Depression, of the Great Depression, when the gangsters has used the trade unions for their own efforts, for their own missions, and they really pressured the entrepreneurs or even raided their enterprises because of the strikes and because of the trade unions activities. So that is why sometimes Canadians and Americans, they have a very particular and cautious treatments towards trade unions. In the same time, for example, the trade unions in France have had a significant role in everyday activities. And you know that in France, in Paris, almost every week there is some kind of strike of the trade unions. Like a lot of the trade union, a lot of the protests and strikes have been initiated by the trade unions. And in this way, some kind of justice in society is prevailing. As any other question, it's dubious. It has two parts of it. So what the SMEs can start with. I have added this photo of the Endeavour legendary yachts. If a person does not know what it is, they see that it's a fantastic yacht. It's a fantastic ship. You can see her riding in the ocean, but see that these people are standing there on the deck. But basically every person at this ship, they know what they're doing. They're setting the sails. They're watching all of the any other side. So if there is something happening in the sea, they're trying to once again retain the balance. The same deals with the working collective. So what the SMEs can start with. So this is something that I've done. Since all of it has been basically based on my experience with the lots of fails, with lots of challenges, with lots of problems. But those are basically what I have learned throughout my experience and when I have learned the code on labor. First of all, divide your work into smaller processes. You might seem that your activity is chaotic, but basically the SME, it takes not only the time of the SME's owner, but it also takes our life energy that we need for our development. So divide it into processes. Who does what? When do you need, like, for example, the key processes, for example, a technologist or an engineer? And what processes do you need some basic skilled person? You have to write it down. What are the things that other people can do? Then you also should provide the specific mandates. How many people you need? How many highly qualified people you need? What are they about to be doing, performing in their roles? How many people do you need? For example, you can find whatever it is and teach them how to do. Who is much easily teachable and who do you need already with a certain level of education? To write down all of these roles and all of the positional instructions. Maybe yes, it will need a lot of time, depending on what processes you involve. But you will already have the key documents and the key ideas that you will follow. So everything you're about to write, it's just not the documents, but the ideas that you amplify. Considering, of course, the fire safety, the labor safety, that is something that is very, very important. It's an important ethical moment. And I know that there has been a lot of cases, in our case in the stations, when the people, they got to the transformator and they will burn there. And like, for example, one of my chefs was a NATO general, and there was like, one of his soldiers has frozen his fingers at this moment. Throughout the investigation, it turned out he just wanted to become number one, and they have to wear some specific gloves during their parachuting. So you have to wear 2 gloves. But he has thought that if he's going to be wearing those warm gloves over the others, so he will receive, like, for example, some kind of word. So they didn't wear them, and he has frozen his fingers off. And yes, of course, there has been a lot of investigation on who is to blame. Who is to blame, the employer or the employee? So you have to take care of safety, first of all. You need to have all of these documents. You have to, like, for example, collect. I've taken my book, for example, that was what I had in my very first day in a Canadian company, see that this is the first draft. And you can see everyone has their signature here. My employer and me, myself, and also my supervisor has signed it. Whether he have seen that I have signed it, but not just drinking a bottle of champagne with my employee, but I have read through that and I have understood everything clearly. I've read through this book of instructions. And here we have all of the behavioral moments. So you can start with a very short and thin folder, but you can improve it and build it up on that. What you will have in this folder, that your company has an equal opportunities, so you're open for hiring all of the people, notwithstanding any kind of peculiarities. Whether you're corresponding to whether you comply with the main requirements, the payment of the labor, how you treat environmental issues, and all of that. This is all what you can include to this folder. This is what you can start with. The SMEs can start with, well, introducing the ethical norms at your enterprise. Start with yourself. Any of your partners, if they're coming to your company, if they're starting to talk to you, then the first thing that they will see is how you treat your personnel, how you treat your staff. And they will think, okay, if you treat your staff like that, then you will treat your partners like that. So once a very important business trainer has said, a very famous business trainer, like, how do you treat your new phone? So you kind of caring about it, you're just putting it into the new folders. But a year after, you're okay with, like, you know, with throwing this phone to something like to the floor or to the table. You do not care about that much. And your client will see that, first of all. Yes, of course, it costs some of the time investment. It's not that much about money, but much about efforts and time. But it will help you to become more competitive. And I would like to give you the final examples on the social responsibility. If you will find the new rules, the team quotas. Remember, we don't have this, like, we don't have the women's football player for a year, or, like, for example, a male football player of the year. They're equal. And Oscar, for example, the Academy Award has also introduced the new rules, the gender equal new rules. So join us. Don't forget about the feedback forms. It's very, very important for us. Even if you would like to criticize us hardly, please do not forget about the feedback. But having said that, I would like to pass the floor to our heroines, because they are now fighting for these grounds, because I am already the person from the past, but they are fighting right now. So, okay, I'm stopping sharing my screen and passing the floor to Ruslana. Okay, how did I do that? Okay, good, great. Ruslana, it's a pleasure to see you here. You're, as always, professional and perfect woman. Good day. Good day. I will have a bit of support with showing my really, really brief slides today. So I will also try to be very brief. So I will speak about our experience of the corporate social responsibility. But before that, I would like to say a couple of words about our enterprise, because very, very soon we'll be 4 years old when we have started to produce cookies in Ukraine with our family company. We are called Let's Be Healthy, Budmo Zdorowie, and we are producing cookies, no gluten, no lactose cookies, with different very important and useful stuff that are called smakuli. So our mission, as we would voice it out, is to help the parents to take care of their children's health with no allergens added. And we're given the opportunity for all of the people to eat really sweet cookies, especially for the people who have some allergies. And we have also seen that when we have started this business in Ukraine, that we have a very limited options for the people who have any kind of the food limitations. So that was partly our social responsibility, also taking care of people with the limited food allergies. But we have decided that we're going to not only pose to additional profits, but we really wanted to have some specific social component to that, to our work. And I think that maybe that's because we're the family business, because it always has happened like this. You know, my grandmother has taught me like this, you know, my parents have taught us like this, that we also should take care of others, not only taking care of ourselves. So this was the main motive why we have started building up the corporate social responsibility program in our company also. We have decided for ourselves that 10% of all of our profits we will provide for the support of the rehabilitation center called Jaralo, that is located in Lviv, and was kind of a personal motive to that, because I have met some parents of the children who are being rehabilitated in this center. Those are unbelievable parents who have built up this rehabilitation center from the spot. It's a unique place. There's no any other centers like this in Ukraine, and I was so much inspired to that the parents are doing for their children. They have been looking for opportunities. They have been looking for donors. They have been looking for the opportunities to find the best rehabilitologist, to teach the best doctors, so they will help their children. And currently the center provides these services for more than 200 children, and they already have the strategy of scaling up their experience to the rest of Ukraine. And we're actually joining them. Of course, that this is a very small impact that we currently have for their development, but my dream is that when we will grow, strong and big, then our company will fully cover the logistics and transport program for Jarelo Center, and it presupposes that it will give the opportunity for the parents with the children with disability. They will help them to be more flexible, because on the transport program presupposes that the children are being collected by the specific transportations, and their parents can have their own time, or they have the time to work. So this is our dream, and when we have also discussed the details of what we're about to be talking today at the webinar, we will also have been talking about what were the challenges that we have faced on our path in introducing this corporate social responsibility. When we just started, we've had no profits at all, and we've also tried to provide them support with our products, because yes, most of the time some children who have some special needs, they also require no lactose and lactose-free and gluten-free foods. That was also very important for us to provide it to them. Now about the benefits, what it has given to us. The corporate social responsibility, when we have already started to introduce this actively, and this year I have been through many different trainings, and by the way, I have had a training at the Evgakids program, and we've also have known that it's very good for the exporters if you would like to export your products to Canada, and we really want to export our product to Canada, and we do hope that soon enough we will do that. But I have thought that, yes, well, everything turned out in place, and, our decision, and what I have heard, and my mentor, by that time, she has also told me that that's very good. You have to make it known at your packaging, not just living it for yourself, because this is also a marketing move, a very good competitive point, because when a person chooses between two products alike, and they see that when you're buying this product, for example, you're also joining a good cause, then this person will absolutely prefer to buy the product that will help some other person a bit. And by the way, take a look at our packaging. Take a look at our packaging. I wanted to show you that afterwards, after this conversation, on the back, there is a message that says that 10% of all of our income, of our corporate income, is being provided to the needs of covering the needs of the center. We haven't had the statistics of whether it has influenced, whether this labeling has also influenced our sales. Maybe we're not communicating it effectively enough, but I still believe that, the consciousness in our country is changing, and I know that because of this project like Turos and other business-aligned projects that make sure that our companies are aware that you can develop your businesses like this by taking care about the others people, by taking care about your employees, being irresponsible towards those spheres that Emma, for example, has mentioned, taking care about the environment. And by the way, one of the moments that we've also considered when we're changing our packaging is 100% recyclable packaging at this very moment. First of all, it can be colored by children, so you can have the second life by actually cutting out those animals and playing with them, but they're also 100% recyclable. And we know that we have to consider this, even if we're a small producer, but you know that this packaging for us is much more expensive than the usual packaging, but it really had a lot of sense for us, and I consider that a very important issue. So we will not add up additional garbage to the world. If we have started our activities, we have to do it the right way straight away. And what I also wanted to add up to that is that currently we are at the very beginning of our export activities. We understand that the COVID-19 has postponed our start slightly, but when we're going to start our exporting activities, we know that our volumes of the production will grow, and all of our products are being baked manually, and most of our the biggest part of our enterprise is in the rural area, and most of our employees are women. And in our opinion, my opinion, we will also have an important social role, an important challenge for us to cope with, is of actually promoting and advocating, not leaving Ukraine for looking for a job abroad, but to provide them the good work conditions and to provide the people from our village, from neighboring villages, with a good working places so they could live with their families, close to their families, so we would not divide, families, so that the children would see their parents on a daily basis. And providing these good working places, I also see the good role of actually supporting the rural areas, supporting villages, because all of these taxes are going to the budget of the village. And this also has an economical component to that. So we're planning to do that. I do hope that we will also manage to implement those plans as fast as possible, as soon as possible. And I'm very actively promoting everyone, all of my colleagues who are also having their own businesses, to listen to the people who have huge, extensive experience, as Michael and Emma has said, who have extensive experiences on, I will say it like this, on how to make your business civilized, how to make your business that is built on values. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ruslana. I believe that those values that you have been talking about, I believe that those values, they are also traditional for our people. And I would like to mention our poet, Lina Kostenko. And what is, like, I know that all of the people who I've already known and all of the businessmen, they're trying to help in some way that they can do that. Some people are doing it silently, some people tell about it, but I'm really, really grateful for you and your experience. I understand how important it is, everything that you do for this small rural community. I know how many families you help them to stick together. I know how many children, through your hands, through your kindness, through your manufacture, have already received that slightly small piece of happiness and welfare. And I hope that we will also, each one of us will have it in the future. We have a question from Michael. But who do you identify, Ruslana, as your main stakeholders? Maybe Ruslana can comment upon that. Yes, I've already answered that, but maybe Ruslana will also answer that. Like, who are your main stakeholders? Well, basically, we have a lot of stakeholders from our side, what I would say, but first of all, those are children with food allergies. Then there are the members of our community, like the people of our community that we're dealing with. But also, I would like to agree that in our case, all of our stakeholders, there are all the people that Michael has mentioned. So basically, those are the people who are connected to bringing up the added value to our products. They are also the stakeholders of our enterprise. So I think that there is a broader circle of people who are also connected so that some other people would receive benefits. Yes, I see that we have some really good wave of your fans congratulating you with that. So we've tried to stick to our schedule. So let us get back to our discussion, because we still have another business lady, the representatives of the corporate social responsible businesses. Tatiana, I have heard a lot about from my colleagues, because I'm not dealing with textiles, even though I'm wearing clothes, but from Maria Gluzman and all of the people who are dealing with apparel, and Olga Stepa has also told me a lot about Tatiana and her businesses. So Tatiana, the floor is yours. So please, because Alice is with us. No, you mean Yevheniya. Oh, I'm sorry. Yevheniya Lukash. Yes, Tatiana. I'm sorry for calling you Tatiana, but Yevheniya Lukash. Please, the floor is yours. Let us now turn to our final speaker, and then when we'll have some time, we can open up the floor for the discussion and cover the questions that you might have. Okay, Good day. My name is Yevheniya, and for 10 years already, we've been working in the apparel business. We're working with the kids' clothes, with children's apparel. And a year ago, we started to deal with the social initiatives. And right now, I'm about to tell you about our cases and what we have done in this direction. As far as we are producing children's clothes, and at some moment we have understood that we would like to do that socially and ethically responsibly. So that's why we've started a new brand, launched a new brand, eco-ethical brand that is not following fashion trends. Those are the clothes when we do not follow the fashion trends. So this kind of eternal closes, because the main goal for this brand would be the slow consumption, slow apparel consumptions by the mothers of the children, by the parents of the children. So what we have done, we have started with an eco-ethical packaging for both inside and outside packaging. So those packagings is made from the recycled material that you can once again recycle. What else? What we've did, we've made a site. On our site, you can buy the leftovers. You can buy the leftovers, something that you usually can throw away. So we're selling it into the small boxes, into small packages from others, so they can do their handmade or do it yourself things. So we were taking care about all of the ways that we have, but we provide also the opportunity for the mothers and children to be doing some handmade craft. We're using only eco-ethical materials and fabrics, so all of the clothes that we produce is made of cotton, and ethically produced cotton. And from the very beginning of our brand and of us launching this brand, we have promised to all of our followers, to all of our fans, that we will show them what we are doing. And in the framework of this eco-ethical initiative, we also wanted to do that so that the clothes that the children have already grown up from can be used additionally, can be once again used. So you can have this, you can, for example, created a platform where you can give away or maybe sell the clothes that already small for your children, because the children, they grow up fast. What are we also doing? In this brand, we're also creating the models that grow together with the child. For example, it's not just a year or a season that you can wear these clothes, but you can wear these clothes for a couple of years or a couple of seasons, depending on how a child grows. Also, I would like to tell you a little bit about our case through the period of the COVID-19's lockdown. So when we all had the situation where the COVID-19 started, you all remember that at this very moment, a week, I guess, before, like in a week or whatever, we had a huge demand for the masks, because all of the people have understood that you have to protect yourself, and there were very, very few masks and face masks in the drugstores. So at this moment, we've stopped producing the children's apparel and we've started creating masks. Moreover, we have clearly understood that there is a very high demand, a highest demand than we can ever produce. And instead of putting the higher price on that, we have made the two different pricing models for that. And I believe that for the biggest part of our masks, we have sold with our minimum price, when we've only calculated the minimum of our costs. So actually given the opportunity for all of the mothers to buy the masks for all of the family. That was the moment when Ohmad, the biggest children hospital in Ukraine, has addressed us and the Red Cross, because everyone was afraid of what was going on. Everything was uncertain, and all of the people needed a lot of medical masks. So at this moment, we've also tried to be socially responsible. We haven't sold it in the really expensive prices, but we've sold it on the costs. And it really, really helped us to, feel the support of our followers and our stakeholders, because like Michael has said, that it brings benefits to all of the stakeholders. And really that is, when you're treating people like that, it has also brought us a lot of benefits. Yes, maybe we haven't earned a lot of money by that, but people were really, really warm with us. And At this moment, we have received a lot of feedback, from all of our customers about our stakeholders and about our social initiatives. I would like to say that sometimes our competitors are also our stakeholders. Well, you can say that. So you also have to deal with your competitors. So even if you will care about your competitors, then you can build a better relationship with them that will help you in the future to have a better benefits overall in the future. Compared to the other marketplace. I'm sorry, I'm slightly nervous. Maybe I've been a little bit puzzled, but I'm slightly worried about that. So everything that we have done, we have tried to communicate it through our social media. So all of our steps, they have been really transparent. We have also got a lot of loyalty from our community and a lot of acknowledgement from our community. They spread out this information about our activities on their own. And when we're doing the responsible steps, even the media would like to speak about that. And it also provides a positive impact to our businesses. So that is why I believe that it is a very profitable investment. So I believe that it's very important to be socially responsible towards your businesses, toward what you're doing. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Yevheniya. Well, I'm sorry for mixing up your name at the beginning, but thank you very much. And I'm really grateful for you. I'm really grateful that you've made this presentation in Ukrainian. I know that it's not your native or your working language. I know that it's much easier for you to speak Russian, but another point is that you have started a very important discussion on, again, joining the ecological mention and ethical mention. Like, for example, the clothes are living for a longest period of time. And I see that Serhiy Ivanchuk has also commented in our chat box that he's not sure that making money on problem as COVID is in some way connected to this business social responsibility, but this is also the personal outline. But you have said that you have been providing those masks for almost only cost-based, so with no additional markup, so that it will be available for our people when it's not haven't been available at the very beginning. But maybe you would like to reflect on this comment, whether like building up your profitability and COVID-19 challenge is not a corporate social responsibility. No, like when I have mentioned the masks, because like this is not what we're doing right now. But then this 2 weeks when everyone has been slightly hysterical about that was very important. And as far as we already have people working and we needed to provide them with job, and we're really giving them this opportunity to buy those masks cheap on the cheap prices for the people who don't have money to buy that. And we've also sold that with a really small markup just for us to be able to pay the salaries for the people. So I believe that at that very moment, that was a very good deed that was very good for all of our customers and all of our stakeholders. Right now, of course, it's not needed. So, we're not dealing with that anymore. Now, I also would like to once again express this opinion. I remember how I was running around the shops, and I would like to recall that around like 45 years ago, I was holding the needle for the last time, and I was trying to create this mask against the nuclear attack, as we have been told in the Soviet Union, that you're only taking a piece of a fabric and covering your face. So I really wanted to do this kind of mask, but then we've had the masks from our producers coming up. So thank you very much for that. I have only final question to Ruslana. Whether you're earning are you producing only gluten-free or sugar-free or lactose-free cookies, or you're producing the traditional, let us say, cookies? Yes, I've already answered this question, but yeah, but maybe you can also Yes, we're making the gluten-free and lactose-free cookies. So that is very important, that when you're producing those products without gluten, then you cannot produce the products with gluten. Because if we were speaking about the allergic people, you know, even a couple of microns can be really, really bad for them. So we are only producing gluten-free and lactose-free cookies. As our friend has said, a friend from Canada said, remember that he said, like, retail is detail. So basically all of it is being in small, short details. And I see that we have a comment from Michael. So we have this follow-up from Michael's. I would like to pass the floor to Michael for that. And as far as I know, we have around like 9 minutes. So maybe you'll have a bit of a questions before our session ends up. But Michael, now the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and I very much enjoyed the presentations. Well done, everybody. I mean, very, very clear and enthusiastic. And you're nervous? I didn't see any of that, actually. I think I'm more nervous than you are. Well done, anyway. But let me get back to a couple of things that I saw. One thing, as you were talking, as our last speaker was talking on face masks and so on, is the issue of reputation. I don't know how that translates into Ukrainian, but reputation of your company is very, very important. A reputation can take 20 years to create as a good company, but you can destroy it in minutes. So you have to be so careful. I've just been reading a book exactly about that, about somebody who called her shop On, and everybody said, you can't use On because we'll call everybody here our friends On. So she had to be very, very careful about rather tiny things. What I liked too was the issue of giving face masks to people who are perhaps not so well off, or to make sure that the whole family got them. I know the face mask issue is a huge controversy. Take it from me, and I read the scientific literature continually. In a closed room, you must wear a face mask. But what she said was fascinating, is that it was, in a sense, a loss-making move, actually, to make sure that her customers actually received a product which was good for them, but not necessarily good for the company. But in fact, what she was doing was increasing the reputation of her company. People will say, yes, that's a great company. I trust their products. And look what they do. In India, for example, corporate social responsibility is just seen as giving money to charity. And in fact, the big companies give 2% of their profits to charity. I'm not in favor of that, because I don't see social responsibility as a tax. It's something that we do as part of human behavior. However, if you do get involved in charitable giving, and there's nothing wrong with that, I always argue for a certain amount of sustainability. I remember in Romania one day, when I was in Romania last year, and I came into the city and somebody was asking me for money, and I said, well, what are you doing? She said, I'm looking after orphans, and we look after them from the age of 5 until the age of 17 or 18, and we train them, we give them the food and health and skills and so on. Absolutely wonderful. But I said, you're asking me for money. It's not very sustainable. That means next year I've got to come back again and give you some more money. What about having a contract with the people who come into your orphanage when they get to the legal age? Have a contract with them saying that when they leave the orphanage and they go into a good job, that they will give 2% of their earnings back to you. And that could be a sustainable way for the future. Maybe not everybody could afford it, so you could make it voluntary. But in fact, that's an idea, to try and make these sorts of things sustainable as much as you can when you're involved in the charitable aspects of what you're doing. That's what the comment I wanted to make. I think, let me leave now for any other comments or any other questions that people have, but I really admire everybody's understanding of the idea of stakeholder, and I hope today that you can think of one or two more that you've not been treating or not thought about so much, and by treating them and working with them, you're even more successful than you are today. Thank you.
Дякуємо, Майкл. Я всім написала, в нас лишилося
So
5
thank you, Michael. We have 5 minutes more before our session ends up, so please send us the question. We can turn your microphone, for example, Yevheniya, Ruslana, maybe you'll have any additional comments or the final words that you would like to add up or recommendations. Yes, I would like to thank the Cuties project because we have gained a lot with working with the Cuties project. We're really grateful for the educational and training components that really helped me to build up the bigger picture in my businesses, and thank you very much for this opportunity to present our products in Canada. I do hope that this is not the final joint project between Canada and Ukraine, because we're a very good country for the joint partnership. And thank you very much, Emma, for your support. You are our guardian angel, especially for us. Yes, I know. I do believe that a lot of people would disagree with you about the angels, but yes, but anyways, we'll keep on still working with you. We're still going to be working with our mentees that we've met at this project, and I think that we will produce a lot of sustainable results. Okay, thank you, Yevheniya. Yes, thank you very much for raising those important topics. Thank you very much for inviting me also to be a speaker on this distinguished panel. That's very interesting, and that's very innovative for Ukraine. And thank you very much for actually being here, for actually doing what you're doing. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And as far as I see that all of the people who have started with us, we have 56 participants. Now we have 45 participants, and I know that everyone has to run away for their businesses. But thank you very much for staying with us for so long. But summing up our conversation, I would like to once again thank to all of our colleagues. Tatiana, we have heard your voice. We have seen you at the very beginning. So wave us with a hand just so we can say thank you and goodbye. Yes, I'm waving you with both of my hands. Okay, good, perfect. Alona Pasika, who has really still nerves because we were in and out. Our presentation wasn't working. But anyway, Alona, thank you very much for your support. Even no one can see you now, or can we see you now? No, we can't see. But anyway, maybe you cannot be seen or cannot be heard, but nothing happens without you in our case. I would like to also thank all of our colleagues. To Leonardine, who is the manager of our project. She's trying to keep us in our framework. We have our colleagues from Toronto and Maria together with us as today. I have already seen Maria Guzman, who's going to be one of our main speakers for the following next programs. And this is a very important person in our project. I have seen Olga Shtapa, who is the coordinator of the project, and she's dealing with our apparel production and with our ICT services components. And I believe she will be one of the speakers at our next workshops and seminars, because this topic is very important for our audience, is in a high demand for our audience, and we're really grateful that you have dedicated hour and a half of your time all together with us to listen to us. And if you don't mind, we have 29 seconds to wrap up. So we just have to close our seminar. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all of our participants and speakers. We wish you the nice evening, the nice day. I hope that you can now enjoy a glass of wine and relax. And I do hope that in a year, maybe we will start seeing each other offline, but let us now take care of one another online and keep on working together. Thank you very much for your attention. Goodbye.